Before we jump in, I want to share a brief note about this episode. This is a solo conversation with you, a quiet reflection, really, about embracing who you are beyond the pressure, beyond performance, beyond what the world reflects back to you. It's for anyone who is weary or uncertain or trying to stay grounded while trusting God, even with a lack of clarity about when or how the breakthrough will finally come. If that's where you are not alone. You are more than your algorithm. Hey, everyone. Let's start healing. I'm Adrienne Murchison, and welcome to this episode winding down 2025 of Let's Start Healing. And we have more in common than we think, and what we have in common can change the world. This episode is so intentionally titled. It has so much intention. I am not my algorithm, meaning you are not your algorithm either. And we're going to talk about it, about what we're trying to accomplish respectively in our lives, and how, whether we succeed at that or not, whether we are where we want to be around that or not, defines us. I have been wanting to talk about this for quite a while. And I've been sort of meshing it all in my mind about how do I want to bring this? How do I want to deliver this? And then I just heard a podcast that was related to this in a way. And to me, it was another affirmation of how we are all so connected, how we are all one, although it doesn't seem like it because of so much division and hate in the world. But we do have more in common than we think. For me, my desire to bring this episode to you is it's around how what I feel, I think I'm not the only one out here who feels this way, am I? There's so many people out here who have a side hustle. I don't know anyone working who doesn't have a side hustle or who hasn't left that regular job and just maybe they're now able to make their side hustle their real thing, the main thing that they do. And if you haven't been able to do that, if that hasn't been able to be your main gig, then it can be discouraging about around, well, when am I going to get to the place where I can just focus on this thing that I'm passionate about? For me, it's this podcast and podcasting. Or for you, it could be so many different things, so many different businesses that you might have. Maybe you're in public relations. Maybe you are just an example. One of my close friends is an interior designer, but that is her main business for the last few years. It used to be her side hustle. It's now her main business. There's so many different things that we all do, and it can be discouraging if you are trying to draw an audience, whether it's through podcasting, whether it's through people patronizing what you do, if that isn't a constant flow and you're really putting in the work and you're wanting to know, well, when am I going to have my breakthrough? And that's something that has been stirring for me lately. When is the breakthrough coming? I'll have momentum and then it subsides. And it can be very discouraging or feel discouraging, especially when I know I have the content. But then I know there's things that I could do differently. So it's just such an ebb and flow. So before I go deeper into this, I was listening to Karen Hunter's podcast, in which she was talking about Joe Budden's podcast. And I do listen to Joe Budden and watch Joe Budden, but I have not seen this yet. And so he was in a conversation where he was quoting an unnamed record producer in LA. The producer was making a point that most musicians don't fail because they're bad. They fail because their nervous system can't survive the industry. And that started tying into becoming discouraged because you don't feel seen, because you're not being recognized. Some of the points that were made: success depends on the body's ability to handle being unseen longer than expected, because we're trying to control this thing, right? We're trying to control and plan, how things are going to happen. And then when they don't, it can be discouraging. Another point: the ability to create when numbers drop, and to write. In this case, they're talking about music when no one cares, is the real industry filter. Again, talking about music. 90% of rising artists crumble from the weight of being ignored. They're just ignored, disregarded. They're not coming up in algorithms. And maybe if they do come up in a person's algorithm and they don't see a lot of views attached to it, then they think, oh, well, let me just keep it moving. The producer emphasized that consistency under emotional pressure, not talent or luck, is the key to success. So this, and I'm going to go and listen to this particular episode. I thought that it was interesting, just focusing on music for a minute. I thought it was interesting because the conversation on Karen Hunter's podcast went deeper into the adrenaline and dopamine that can come from people really starting to know who you are, and what can happen when that subsides. It goes in the reverse direction. But then I was thinking, well, how accurate is that? I'm sure that's true, but I have been around a lot of local musicians in the metro Atlanta area over the last 40 years. And from what I can discern, so many of these musicians, number one, they may perform locally, but they may perform with big major artists, as a part of their band. Number two, and that's how they make their living. And also, I see the love of the music. I see how so many artists, local artists, and I know Atlanta is not the only city, so many local artists, they keep performing for the love of the music. And I think that not everyone, whatever your craft is, whatever your big passion is, maybe not everyone is trying to be ultra famous. Maybe we just we want this passion to speak to people and to be able to generate some income, so this can be our full-time focus. And I know that that's true for me. Yes, I would love for Let's Start Healing to blow up, but I have been very mindful about, be careful what you ask for, because I don't know what would come with that. What do I really want? I want to serve God, and I want to be a voice for God in the best way that I can. And the way that I do that may be different than the way my next door neighbor does that. The way that I would like to do that is through this podcast and the other spiritual podcasts that I bring to you. And it can be, um, for me lately, because I have work that pays my bills, and that work takes up a lot of bandwidth. It can be, um, at times, I would say, recently, I have felt like, one, I want to come to you when I'm feeling very genuine and I'm not trying to just phone something into you. And two, when I see that I bring something that I think is really fruitful and um, it's not coming up in other people's algorithms. Definitely consistency helps and doesn't hurt, but it doesn't mean that, okay, well, let me just be consistent and do this every day. Doesn't mean that that's going to turn into what we want it to turn into right away. And so I have been grappling with this, and I had a dream and some thoughts that I shared with someone, and I made some notes and I want to share. And I really hope that this can maybe speak to you. And a real question is, what is your passion? What do you think your purpose is? And how do you plan to step into your purpose in 2026? I wrote down what my dream was. Okay, and I'm going to try to nutshell this, and then I want to share some of the responses and see if some of the responses resonate for you. So I had a dream that I'm not sure if I was in Atlanta or New York. It just kept vacillating. It felt like New York, it felt like Atlanta, or a blend of both cities. I had to cross a big city park, so Central Park or Piedmont Park, but this park had a lot of rocky terrain. It was very mountainous, and I had to cross over streams. One part, now, for one thing, I was dressed up and I had on high heels as I'm trying to navigate this terrain. And it was a sunny day. It was warm outside. I had on a backpack, and also my dog Shiloh was with me. And Shiloh was on my backpack, but not in my backpack because there were things in my backpack. Shiloh was gripped onto my shoulders, like laying over the back of the backpack on my back and gripping onto my shoulders as I'm navigating all this. And I was able to maneuver everything and come out of the park successfully. And then when I get out of the park, I'm trying to get to an office building on the other side of the park. And I successfully do this. And then I'm outside the building and I run into some friends. And I'm hoping to get into this building for an interview because I have some friends, a couple of friends who work there. And this company, this business I'm trying to get to it's all women, all Black women actually, who own and run this firm. And what did I write down here? Oh, to get in the building, I had to scale the building to get in the building. I couldn't just walk in the front door of the building. I had to scale the building. And it required a lot of technique, and anyone would appreciate what I was doing to try to get inside. They appreciate someone with my skills, but they were not interested in me for whatever role I was seeking in their firm. I did see an opportunity for me to hang around because it was a really light atmosphere. It was a real warm atmosphere. And although I said that this firm was run by Black women, I mean, there were white women who worked there, women of all hues who worked there. Somebody said something that let me know, hey, I can stay. I may have another opportunity to have an in with this firm. And there was a woman who recognized me, and she basically let me know, we're not interested in you. Okay. And it became like a real social atmosphere. But I started feeling like it was looking disrespectful. Like, what, am I trying to manipulate something? Like, they might think I'm trying to manipulate something by me hanging around. And so um, I had to ask a friend to kind of smooth things over with this woman who said, "We're not interested in you." To smooth things over, not where she would change her mind about that, but she wouldn't like say, "I really don't feel like it's cool for her to be hanging around here. No, I feel like she's, being a little disrespectful here." They smooth that over. So I really like to interpret dreams because my dreams can be so vivid. And um, oh my gosh, I'm trying to think of a spiritual author's name. I'll put her up on this screen. I learned from her being on Oprah many years ago, like 20, 30 years ago, about how to interpret dreams. And so and basically she was saying to um, create a symbol out of what different things mean, like what the park might mean, what the building might mean that I'm scaling, what Shiloh might represent, or my backpack might represent, things like that. So, anyway, I shared this with someone and they said, um, the park is not a simple park. It's mountainous, rocky, and narrow, and it requires technique. And this suggests you are navigating a complex life terrain, not a straight path forward. And that this requires discernment, balance, intelligence, and agility, not just effort. And so, this is what they're saying, I'm recognizing in my subconscious. I'm capable of crossing it successfully, but it's not easy. It's not divine for comfort. The fact that this is a city park suggests that the journey is happening in the world, not in isolation, regarding career, visibility, contribution, and purpose. Me saying Atlanta and New York is representing ambition, scale, recognition, and Atlanta, where I live, is representing identity and a grounding. So there's many things in this dream, they said, that suggest that I'm carrying something precious, perhaps my tenderness, my heart, my truth, my emotional self. I have learned to move forward without abandoning this. I am looking for affirmation within my own community, not just success, but being seen by people who should understand you. And this is because it's a black firm and it's black women, but this is true, but it's this and more. I think this is something that I want to say, no, no, that's not true, but it's absolutely true. Affirmation and more, because anything that we put out that comes from our soul and our spirit, we want that to be affirmed. And I think that anything that we really, really love, we want to share with the world. We want to share that with the world because you can even think about your children and how many how much you love your kids and how back in the day before we had our phones, it would be pictures in the wallet. And here, let me show you a picture of my kids. Now it's let me show you a picture of my kids on social media. But and also when we come to um a deep love and awareness or knowing within ourselves, we want to share that. And that's how I feel. That's a part of my being. That's a part of my being because that's a part of my relationship with God is to um, help people navigate a path out of loneliness and understand that you are not alone. Understand how you are not alone. when I was sharing this dream, I had said that the woman says to me, "Not today," "Not today." Like, she's not interested in seeing me today. And so they said that this is the line between advocacy and overstaying, how quickly a woman's persistence can be reinterpreted as entitlement, and how unclear signals create an emotional risk. But she said, the person I was talking to said, "You're not aggressive. You are not arrogant. You are hopeful. And hope costs something here. Hope costs something here." And she says that the core meaning of the dream, in her opinion, is not that the dream is saying, "What did I do wrong?" It's saying, "Why am I still," this is the key. This is the key. "Why am I still trying to enter spaces that require me to minimize, explain, or to wait? I've already crossed mountains. I already know how to carry what matters. I already have techniques, experience, resilience, and heart." Isn't this true for you? If you feel a little, I don't, and I've been thinking about this word, and I don't know if weary. I think weary is the a little weary. Weary is better than exasperated, because I'm trying to think, well, what's the word? So, how do you feel if you feel like you're at a point where you're saying, I you have what you think you need to bring what you want to bring. You've already crossed mountains. You already know how to carry what matters. You already have experience, resilience, and heart. You still long for recognition from places that you admire. You still long for recognition because the recognition is what helps you to move forward in doing the thing that you want to do, right? This is where I come back to you and I share about algorithm, because she said, my dog, and this is so true, that my dog Shiloh represents in the dream my soul in the work. My podcast, Let's Start Healing, is not content, quote unquote. My podcast is my heart, my lived wisdom, my tenderness. And I've chosen not to hide that, which is so, so on point. I did not put Shiloh in the backpack in my dream. I carried Shiloh with me visibly and vulnerably. And this makes my work, my podcast work, less algorithm friendly, more soul forward, slower to scale, deeper when it lands. And the office building equals platforms, algorithms, successful metrics. I am trying to enter spaces that say, quote, "Yes, we value voices like yours. Yes, yes, authenticity matters. Yes, spiritual conversations are needed." But attention actually goes elsewhere. And I am left with the question mark. So the bottom line is, it may be that what you're doing is not a question of it didn't work. It does work, but the timing is not necessarily yours when it lands. That perfect timing, or my perfect timing, as I'm sharing with you this dream, it's not my time, it's God's time. It's not your time, that you dictate, it's God's time. We don't necessarily know when that perfect moment is going to come, but it does require you and I to keep moving forward, to keep doing the thing that you love to do. And it may be that, well, first of all, the journey is so important. How you are filled in doing the thing that you love to do. That is so important. And I think the when I mentioned earlier about um me being mindful about being careful what uh I ask for. I think about Sandra Bland, and I've brought her up before, the late Sandra Bland, who was, she wanted to bring so much attention to these shootings and police shootings. And, she was so focused on say my name, say my name, say my name. And she absolutely has become a name that will be known always. And I just it hurts me that that came at the cost of her losing her life. That she was so committed to highlighting, this crucial issue, and when she broke through to making a difference, her life was over. She paid for that with her life. Life can be so ironic, and I don't have any more meaning to that other than that's what that was. To me, that happened. She was doing a lot of work to serve others, and that's what happened. She lost her life, and her life became symbolic of the issue that she was fighting against. One thing that the person that I shared this dream with, uh, one point that they were making, they said that the dream was not saying to give up, that I'm not cut out for this, that I don't have what it takes. If it was, then the dream would have stopped while I was in the park, and that's not what happened. What it's doing is pointing out that I'm in a process, and you're in a process, and the process is figuring it out. And it's two things that I think that we can say when we have, a deep passion around something that's for good. And I mean this around what's for good is to be in it boldly and unapologetically. And if not now, being bold and unapologetic, then when? And to be open to the process and what it is that there is still for us to learn and grow in this experience. So I want you to remember that you are not your algorithm. You are not your algorithm. A lot of times when we go out in the world and people see us, we present a certain way and they see us a certain way, but they don't really know the us behind how we present ourselves publicly. They don't really know that us that, maybe has to show up at the office. They don't really know that real us. So you are not your algorithm. You are not your algorithm. What you're doing is your passion and your purpose, and you're you're not your algorithm. I'm not my algorithm. And I think, a good question to ask as we go into this new year, the year of the horse, is to ask ourselves, what are we willing to do differently? What are we willing to do differently for good, for the better good? I don't mean anything in any negative way. What are we willing to do differently for our well being around ourselves, around what we're trying to make happen? What are we trying to do differently? And for me, 2025 has been a year that I recognized that it was going to be a year of me grinding, grinding, grinding to try to make things happen. And it's been a successful year for me in many ways, despite what I'm saying. I put so much effort into work, my journalism work and producing in that area. And that was beneficial. That has been beneficial for me because it has helped me to keep the lights on. So that has been good. And I've written many, many, many stories this year that really matter to me, whether they were profiles, of which I've written many that I am so proud of, or whether they were about accountability in trying to highlight something that I thought was not kosher. But I'm recognizing and started recognizing in November 2026 is a year for allowing God to do what God is going to do. And I tried to start that early. So I tried to start that in November rather than waiting to January 1st. And what I realized was, boy, I've been in a habit of grinding and firmness. And it is um, really more than a notion and just say, oh, okay, I'm just going to be into allowing. I have to be very conscious and mindful of allowing because I have been in such a habit of the grind. And I am committed to um, allowing God to do what God is going to do and to trust God more each day as best I can, because I know there are moments where I'm going to forget and might take a step backwards, but we can always choose again. So, what are you willing to do to step more into who you want to be, to step more into allowing the the passion that you have to unfold? What are you willing to do? What are you willing to do? How do you plan to serve? Have you recognized around your passion what your purpose is? Do you understand that you are not your algorithm? Do you understand that you are not um, the negative things that the media might depict you as, or your community as, in a negative way? Do you recognize what is true? Are you willing to stand in your truth? At this point in time, I think we're called to do so much. And when I say that, I mean within. We're called to do so much within, so much within, being in truth. So you are not your algorithm. I am not my algorithm. And so my desire is to continue to bring you wonderful Let's Start Healing conversations as we move into 2026. Let's allow and let's start healing.